Okay, so what's saying people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs that we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video because there is a bonus pair there for you. Before we do get into analysis, I'll go through the trades I'm currently in or trades I've taken this week, and we'll take a look at the dollar and then we'll get into the analysis. But if you do want to skip ahead to a particular pair, feel free to use the timestamps below. But I had 3 positions this week, but 2 positions I was holding from the week prior. The 2 positions being a long on dollar CHF and a long on Aussie CHF. No, it was a long on pound Aussie, sorry. We'll go through those 2 first and then we'll take a look at dollar CHF, which I took this week. But pound Aussie, this was a trade I took last Thursday. So not the Thursday just gone, but the one before. In a bit of profit at the moment, nice move to the upside, nothing crazy with this position, just looking to try and catch the low of the range. Price had a really nice breakout, that was my entry. Originally had my stops underneath the low, I have now trailed them to 2.06319, so this arrow there is where my new stop loss is trailed to. Just to minimize risks, we've seen convinced momentum in my favor. There's no need to try and keep the stop loss there and try and give them the trade as much room as it needs. It's got enough room. I'm simply just looking for a push to the up end of the channel. If price does start to die from here, I don't really want to be in the position anymore. So stop loss trailed in a bit of profit. Hopefully you can see a push to the high there. And again, just manage the trade as we go along. I'll continue to trail the stop loss and see what we can do at the highs. Plan is to take probably most of my profits there, but maybe hold for potentially a breakout. And also a trade I had last week, Aussie CHF, which I have exited, only for a very small loss. The initial risk was all the way down here, stop loss at 0.517, so roughly closed for about minus 0.25 R roughly. So a pretty minimal loss, but again, actively managing the position. One thing I did say throughout the streams is I didn't want to see price close below this support level, because a big part of me taking the entry on the breakout is that momentum should sustain. If momentum doesn't sustain, the idea of the trade is no longer there, because if you're going to buy a breakout, you're expecting price to continue in that direction, of course. So price is now breaking back underneath the support level. That's a clear sign to me that momentum that I was banking on in the beginning is no longer there. Now, I still do have a very much a long-term bias for Aussie CHF. I've talked about my targets for this idea was a push all the way up here to this area of supply. We're recently coming from all-time lows as well. So I do think price is likely to form a bottom still and see a lot more upside in the near future. But that position I had is not going to plan. So I'm looking for re-entries, hopefully next week or whenever. And that should hopefully allow me to get back into the position. Of course, if price decides it wants to continue lower, then I'll stay away. But still looking for the breakout. Just trade, I was probably just in a bit too early in hindsight, so I did take a small loss on that one. And dollar CHF, I took a minus 0.5 R on this one as well. I entered on this candle. This was on Monday. Looking for a lot more upside here. Again, kind of playing on momentum here. Price was very, very choppy. We talked a lot about this one in the last weekly analysis. A lot of consolidation at a very critical level of support. So the plan was just to see if price can continue to do that and potentially break out higher. We did get the breakout, but momentum flipped. We had CPI and we got a pretty bearish candle there. So I decided to call the trade early, get out there for just a bit more than a minus 0.5 R loss on the position, which was in hindsight a pretty good call because I would have ended up taking the full loss on the trade. But I'm still bullish on dollar CHF. I'm still bullish on the DXY. We'll take a look at that shortly. So still a pair which I am liking the upside to. Just again looking for opportunities for a re-entry. At the moment, not quite seeing that. But I am still pretty bullish on the USD. So that's an update in the positions. At the moment, only in pound Aussie. Just managing that and hopefully trading stops as we continue higher. But we'll see what that position has for the upcoming week. Now, in terms of the dollar, still pretty bullish on this one. I like where we're trading back in this area of demand. This is where originally when we had that breakout and the strong move after NFP, where I said price probably will make a move down here because it was such an aggressive move. And typically when you have these aggressive moves, you will get deeper pullbacks. Very rarely we're seeing aggressive move and price just shoots off straight away. This momentum has to kind of fizzle out a little bit. And that's kind of what has happened eventually. What I like about dollar is that we are quite corrective on the way down. We didn't keep this momentum. It's not like price plummeted and just kept dropping hard. It's been a slow kind of corrective grind mostly. So it looks like we are tiring, coming into a strong area of demand. Perhaps if you do form a bit of a double bottom here, or even just wait for the break of the counter trend line, I do think that'll be a smart place for a buy. And we can anticipate potentially a push all the way back to the high there potentially, or at least a push back to this high around 98.858. I think that'll be a sensible target to have for the DXY. Two targets there. Depending how bullish we are, we might go and smash into both, or we might reverse from here. So DXY, I'm still pretty bullish, still expecting more upside. So that's really my plan regarding pretty much all the USD pairs, looking for opportunities that do favor dollar strength. Same thing for Euro USD. I am looking for shorts on Euro. So again, expecting strength there in USD and hence a move lower. Similar targets, looking for a push into this low. And again, if things are looking very bearish and we see a full swing, then perhaps a push into the low down there as well. You can see how corrective we are on the way up, which again is a key sign that this could be a lower high. We've seen the characteristics of it. We're seeing these prior highs as well. And if I just draw a rough trend line connecting the dots, kind of coming into an area where potentially we could see a third test of that trend line and perhaps that lower high really come into play. So again, for Euro, looking for a double top in this area, a strong close to the downside, perhaps even breaking outside of that ascending channel would be really, really nice. Stops above the high, and then initial target 1.157, second target 1.14. So really bearish in Euro, just looking for a strong reaction at this area. Now we want a location for entries. Those would be my two targets, and then we'll go from there. But that is the plan for Euro USD next week. Okay guys, so before we progress with the video, I just want to quickly share with you a project we've been working on, Zenthryx.ai. It's an advanced AI-powered trading platform which allows traders to access AI-powered tools and a lot more to take their trading to the next level. And I quickly want to share with you the platform. We'll go through it briefly, take a look at what Zenthryx has to offer, what's coming soon, and what to get excited about. So quickly, let's take a look. This is the platform. This is the dashboard for Zenthryx.ai. You've got different areas for different sections and different services that Zenthryx has to offer. Here you have the CFD trading area, which allows you to access the AI powered trading signals across different markets, different time frames. There's a lot to go through there. And you can choose what signals you want to follow. You can also connect it to your broker, so you can directly take these trades into your brokerage account, whether demo or live. You can also chat with different AI agents. Here you've got a selection of different analysts. You've got fundamental analysts here, which you can talk to in plain language, discuss what the fundamental outlooks are for Euro USD, for example. You can talk with the technical analysis, the sentiment analysis, and find different information for different markets. You've got the market outlook here. This will give you outlooks for the day, outlook for the week. If you want to get a brief summary of what opportunities there are for the day or for the week, that's a great place to start. You've got the platform algorithm over here, which you can find and create different strategies, indicators. Here's the strategy validation, which actually allows you to backtest strategies and see how profitable it is, and also give you indications to how to tweak and improve the strategy. Here you'll be able to find a library of all the strategies and all the indicators you make. And the beauty of it is you can use plain language to develop these indicators and develop these strategies. No code is required. Also, the CFD strategy builder, you can come here, build a strategy from scratch. If you need some help, you've got the AI assistant here, which will give you prompts. It will give you information of how to start to develop a trading strategy. You can, of course, take the strategy and go and connect it with your brokerage account. And in these tabs, you can monitor it, monitor upcoming trades, monitor your performance on that account. And a really bright future of Zenthryx is how it looks into the future, into trading on chain and on-chain prop firms as well. Here we have perps trading, which allows you to trade directly from your wallet on chain. So no broker required, no need for withdrawal delays or deposit delays or KYC. Here you have on-chain prop firm, which involves exactly what you've been seeing with normal prop firms trading on a centralized exchange. This time it's just decentralized, so the exact same rules apply, but again, look into the future, how trading is developing into the future. Here you can find crypto trading on the Solana blockchain. You can swap between tokens, place orders, launch tokens here, trading bots, you have an AI assistant there to help, you can monitor other wallets and so on, and a lot more coming in the near future, guys. So get excited, there's a lot coming here with Zenthryx. Check out the description, you can find the Telegram link to the community, and also for limited time only, we do have an offer, the Telegram Signal group, which you can find the link to that as well. So check it out if you're interested. Anyway, back to the video. Okay, so next up we've got dollar yen. So I am slightly bullish on this one. I do think we can see a bit more upside. There is a slight uptrend at play here. I don't expect this uptrend to last forever. I'm pretty bearish longer term actually with dollar yen. If we scoot to the higher time frames, you can kind of see why we got these two major swing highs, lower highs starting to print, and I do feel that there's a good chance of a third one coming into play at some point, and perhaps we do get a big continuation back into support and maybe breaking through as well. So long term, I don't see this uptrend continuing for much longer, but it is still in play. We are still seeing higher highs and higher lows, and altogether this bearish move does look quite corrective. I know initially we were pretty strong, but we are starting to slow down and even consolidate. So as I said last week, these are two areas which I do like the buys from. We did test this first area this week, nice reaction. They don't really give us too much upside though. I spoke about these areas as being targets for the bullish move. I still do like those areas as targets. I would, on second thought, keep an eye on resistance here because it looks like price is really struggling. So that could be a nice kind of initial target to watch out for, but I do like the possibility of another swing to the upside and kind of just seeing this very slow, sluggish trend somewhat continue. So the two areas I spoke about last week are still valid. If price was to get here again, start to reject it well, I do think buys look good. As I said, I would just keep an eye on this area because we are struggling. And if we were to push a little bit lower, there's a nice area of demand here where price had a brief consolidation, really nice breakout, a lot of momentum, and we're yet to come back and revisit that area. I can see price potentially pushing lower, taking out some of these lows, taking out some liquidity, and then potentially seeing that low form for a nice push to the upside. And if things go very well, we could be pushing towards those highs. Probably not all within 1 week, of course, but there's that possibility if this light uptrend is going to continue. Dollar yen, pretty bullish, looking at opportunities in both of these areas. Again, price action will be the indication in terms of actually taking the trade or not. If price does push into those areas but doesn't give us much sign of rejection, well, I would stay very much away from buying it. But of course, if things look good, seeing some healthy rejection, wicks, maybe a strong candle close, bullish close, of course, then yeah, there could be some nice longs to take next week from either 146.5 or 145 on the dot. So that'll be the plan next week for dollar yen. Okay, so over to USD CAD next. So another USD pair. I'm pretty bullish on this one. I do think we can see some more upside for dollar CAD. CAD's looking a little bit weak as well at the moment as well. So if we could see some dollar strength come into play, that would really get things underway. But what I really like about dollar CAD is the daily chart. We've had a really nice daily close on Thursday, and a key focus for dollar CAD has been this level of support and resistance. Support once, resistance once, twice over there. A little bit of a mixture here. We slightly broke below, which is why I didn't really like dollar CAD a few days ago, but we have improved since price has recovered that level. Looks like it's come back for a retest, and we've seen a really nice reaction on the daily chart with that candle close. So I am looking for upside back to resistance here. Looks to me that we've had a really impressive bullish leg breaking out of support. It's come back for the retest. It's not perfect, of course, because we did dip below, but essentially price looks like it's forming a higher low, respecting support, and perhaps now we can see the continuation back to highs. And maybe further as well, if things go very well, there is a possibility for a push into roughly 1.395. I'm not expecting anything crazy from dollar CAD. There is major resistance above us here, but at least a push to the highs, I can be fairly confident with that we could see that move this week. As long as we don't go and close back below this area, I am pretty bullish on dollar CAD. So the plan is looking for pullback opportunities. It looks like we've had a nice breaking retest of this level. So there could have been some nice entries on the lower time frames to really take advantage of that. If we were to fail and come back for a deeper test, which is something I would favor for dollar CAD, potentially putting another retest of this trend line, first, second, third, I think that could actually provide a really nice entry, especially kind of on the 4-hour chart or hourly chart for a swing. to take it back into resistance here, or even back to the highs there, as I mentioned on the daily chart. But either which way, I'm anticipating this to be the higher low. So if you can find opportunities at support around here, I think you're positioned very, very well. If we were to see something like this happen, of course, I'll put that bias to one side and probably speak about some shorting opportunities at that point. But for me, things are looking very bullish. We're holding support very well. Starting to see some nice momentum there as well. So I do think we can see a push back into resistance. So that is the plan next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So not my favorite pair at this moment in time, but I do think we can see a bit more downside for this pair. It looks to me that price is really struggling at resistance here. We've had a couple of rejections, 1, 2 really aggressive ones as well. So I do think potentially a top could be forming. I'm looking at the higher time frames as well. We're starting to look a bit fatigued, and I wonder if the market can go through a bit of a sell-off, maybe somewhat of a bearish trend. Now, I'm never really going to be looking too far in the future of Euro Pound because it's a very choppy pair and it's difficult to predict bigger swings unless we're kind of at major support, which, yeah, we're at some decent resistance here, but I wouldn't say anything really significant, especially looking at the higher time frames. And when I'm talking about significant support resistance, I'm mainly talking about the highs and lows of this massive range price has been in. We're kind of in the middle of things, so I'm not really looking for anything really sustained. So in terms of the lower time frames, the 4-hour chart, I do like selling opportunities at 2 areas. Let me just refine that to the 4-hour high there. So 2 areas. So if price can push back to resistance, I think naturally this would be a good place for a short. Again, provided we see some healthy rejection. We've seen 2 prior reactions at this area, and in particular 2 really strong ones as well. You can see by the force and the size of those candles that we're seeing a lot of selling pressure at this area. So if price was to revisit that area and again see similar rejection, I think there's a good chance we do see some downside. And secondly, if price was to go and break through support and show somewhat of a trend, then I would be very much interested in picking up some retests of this area, because again, this is a pretty decent level of support. If that was the break, that would really be a big break of structure for me, somewhat of double top, and now I'm looking at a bearish trend, and then I will be looking at a lot more downside off the back of that. So Euro Pound, I'm leaning towards the bearish side of things. I'm not saying that the market structure is necessarily bearish yet, but we are failing at highs, rejecting key resistance, and we're seeing a lot of selling pressure as well. So whether we get back to resistance at 0.72 and take some shorts off the back of that, or wait for the trend to really reverse and try pick some lower highs off a retest of price support and resistance, either which way, I'm looking for some selling opportunities. So that's the plan next week for Euro Pound. Shorts off the high at 0.873 or a breaking retest of 0.86. So we'll keep an eye on those 2 levels going into next week. Okay, so next up we've got Aussie dollar. So I'm pretty bearish on this one. Again, another USD pair. So again, expecting USD strength to come into the market. So that would help Aussie dollar on the way down. We've been very corrective on the way up, which is what I do like about the price action, because previously after pretty bearish moves, we've seen really violent bullish reactions, which are patterns of reversal, not really seeing the conviction of these bearish moves. But we had a pretty big bearish move past couple of weeks, taking out some key structure as well, and then we've been pretty slow on the way up, which shows that we are very corrective, running out of steam, perhaps looking to form a lower high, which of course is the move I'm looking for a push back into support, and probably for us to go a bit further as well. We've been in a very long ascending channel for quite some time, which we've broken out of, and again, looks like price is retesting pretty well now, especially with that close there on Thursday. So I do expect to see a lot more downside in this to be a lower high for Aussie dollar, so it should take us back to lows and possibly that back to some of these areas around 0.636. So with Aussie, in terms of entries, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Of course, in hindsight, it would be nice to be in the market already, but I would say the next best opportunity would be, actually let me just highlight that area, would be a retest of this level, which kind of looks a bit like a head and shoulder pattern. I mean, it pretty much is a head and shoulder pattern, left head, right shoulder, coming back to test some resistance. That would be a nice place to put a stop loss above, get some entries in that area, and look for a swing back into the lows. And that way you probably look at a decent risk reward as well. So yeah, the way I see it, we are likely having a pullback for more downside. There could also be some opportunities on the breaking retest of support here, especially if you're looking a bit more intraday. I think something like that could provide some nice entries, especially if we don't actually get the retest of this level. We may see some downside pretty early on. If that's the case, maybe a breaking retest of that level will be the next best opportunity for a short. So Aussie I'm pretty bearish on, really correct to move higher. It looks like we're seeing some conviction lower. We're breaking out this ascending channel as well, which is a key factor. Now I'm looking for a push back into the low, at least for next week, around 0.641. So that is the plan next week for Aussie dollar. Okay, so next up we've got New Zealand CAD. So we are stuck in another consolidation with this one. We've been in a range for quite a while, but it looks like price has created another one. Funny enough, we've been in a range over here, then price slightly broke lower, and now we're creating some more resistance around 0.824 and some support around 0.81. So price has just been fluctuating quite a lot. I do have a bearish bias longer term for New Zealand CAD. I can see us breaking down, possibly coming back to some of these lows and potentially even a push back to the low here. So I do see more downside, but until we get a established breakout, I'm not going to discuss that too much, because really there's no point in that, because price is finding resistance and support pretty well. So for the time being, looking to take some longs off the low or some shorts off the high, which is 0.825 for the sells and 0.812 for the longs, is the best bet. I would stay away from the middle, because that's where all the fluctuation and the indecisive price action is. So I wouldn't really try to risk anything in the middle. I would very much be focusing at the lows and the highs and looking for signs of reversal at those areas. So keeping it very, very simple for New Zealand CAD. Like I said, long term, I do think we can see a lot more downside, but we're not quite there yet. Maybe get the breakout next week. If not, very much just focused at the lows and at the highs. And again, when markets are ranging, the best thing to do is keep it simple, focus at the extremes, look for signs of rejection and play off that. Or if you are waiting for breakout, be patient and wait for the market to actually make that move. So New Zealand CAD for now, really nice range, resistance up around 0.823, support around 0.812, waiting for price to approach either of those areas and looking for some rejection to take some trades. But that will be the plan next week for New Zealand CAD. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So it looks like we've got a breakout this week. Another market which has been ranging, but looks like it has picked a direction. I was expecting us to break lower, looking for this trend to potentially start to top out and start to form a bit of a bearish one, but looks like the trend still does have some steam left and a very nice close on Thursday, I must admit. So if this is the real deal, if this is the breakout, which is going to send us to highs, which is kind of anywhere around this 2.31 to 2.33 area, then I'm looking for us to stay above that. I do not want to see us close back below, because of course that would mean a fake out. I mean, it's not like I don't want to see it to happen in terms of an opportunity, it's just I don't want to see it happen in terms of the buys, because of course if price does close back within the range, it's a fake out. But of course perhaps some retest on the same level and look for some shorts, and a push back to the lows could still be a nice opportunity. So that's something to keep in mind. But for now, it looks like a pretty convincing breakout. I like the momentum we're seeing on the lower time frames as well. Very big candles breaking through. So just keeping it very simple. If we can get some pullbacks into 2.27 to retest that level of resistance, now turn support, I think that would be a very effective place to position yourself long and hopefully take advantage of the next swing back into the daily high around 2.30. Again, the high in terms of the actual high is closer to 2.34, but this is kind of where resistance will start coming into play. Again, we can go further, but that will be kind of a safe bet, at least for a target. You can always trail stops and hang on to positions. But pound NZD, very commanding breakout. Now looking for the retest of that area. If we zoom out the daily chart, keeping it very simple. If this is the level we're broken through, the next best guess will be us to approach the next level, which would be that daily high. So just looking for a retest, a pullback, and a continuation. And that will be the plan for pound NZD next week. Okay, so over to CAD Yen. So things are looking interesting. It looked like potentially we could be getting ready for a bit of a bearish move. I wouldn't say we're quite there yet, but we are hinting at it. I've drawn this trend line, which has kept us pretty bullish. You can see first test, second test, third test. And at the moment, we're having our fourth, but we haven't seen much bullish momentum off the back of that. We had a bit of a double top here, and we've been struggling to see some upside since then. Now it looks to me that price is starting to break through the trend line. I've kind of boxed this off as a consolidation because we have been quite choppy through most of the week, to be honest. So it's not like we're seeing convincing momentum. Nice bearish leg there for the breakout, but we are kind of stuck at support at the moment. So what I want to see for CAD Gen is a more convincing bearish move, really kind of breaking through these lows here and really kind of pulling away from the trend line. That'll tell me that, okay, the breakout is already in play. Perhaps from a daily perspective, this up move might just be a big pullback for this bearish move, and then we might be looking at a continuation back to these lows longer term, maybe even further as well. So if that's the case, if you're going to really break through that area, then we could be looking at quite a convincing bearish trend forming. And of course, the plan will be looking for pullbacks of that same move and looking for a continuation. And the next bet would be into the prior low, which is hovering around 104.831. So CAD Gen, I'm leaning to the bearish side of things. I wouldn't say this is set up yet. Like I said, I'm waiting for that kind of momentum to really pick up and a convincing breakout. So until then, I'm kind of just waiting and keeping a close eye on the pair. But should we see a convincing drop, it doesn't have to be as big as that, but just convincing momentum breaking through support to really pull away from that trend line, then the plan will be finding that next lower high. Perhaps some trend line confluence, connecting the dots there as well, looking for a retest of structure, and from there taking some shorts. So it's still a very hypothetical opportunity, but should we see the continuation, it actually becomes a very good opportunity, which is kind of followed by some higher time frame backing as well. So keeping an eye for a breakaway test of 106.5. Next big target will be 104, but again, still kind of waiting for a bit more momentum to get things going. But that'll be the plan next week for CAD Yen. Okay, so on to pound USD. So we are still testing a very key structural point. This is our previous lower high, which gave us this low. So technically speaking, the market is still bearish because we have to break through that high for us to get the break of structure. So technically we are still bearish and we very well could still sell off, but we have lost a lot of confidence along the way. We've had a pretty big pullback, somewhat aggressive pullback as well. I was originally looking for the retest of this area. That didn't play ball. Price broke through that. Then I was keeping an eye on this trend line here as well. Price broke through that as well. So I've been looking to short pound USD. Didn't really find a good concrete entry for it based on those confluences. So I've stayed out the market. Now we are testing this high, which we've seen somewhat of a rejection, but we are struggling to break through. So if that can sustain next week, there could be some nice shorts off this level. Now I wouldn't look for the home run for a push all the way back to the low. Of course, we could possibly see that, but I would take things a little bit more cautiously. It's a pretty big pullback. I would suggest if we can get a move back to this area, that would be a great trade in itself. Maybe we do find support there and turn around. Maybe price does manage to break through. We'll find that out along the way. But for now, this is still a very sturdy level, very strong level of resistance. I do think we can see some downside there, but I would wait for some more evidence on another rejection. We saw a nice test there. We'll see what price can do again. Maybe we can see something similar, even more powerful, maybe a bigger wick rejection or a stronger close. I think that could actually really shape up to a nice short. Maybe pound might look to weaken a little bit. It's been quite strong recently. Maybe that trend can start to die down, but a key characteristic will be what the DXY does. If the USD is going to be strong, that should help us out. If USD does remain weak, then probably pound does break structure. And of course, if that happens, that goes, the short idea goes out the window, and probably pound does make a move back to high. So keep a close eye on that level. It's important that we do respect it, which so far we are doing now. So keeping a close eye at that high just below 1.36. Next target 1.34. And potentially could be talking about 1.315, but for at least next week, we'll be discussing 1.34. So that's the plan for pound USD. Okay, so over to pound CAD. So it looks like pound CAD is coming to the top end of this range. Again, it has been a really nice trend, to be honest, but I do think we're starting to run out of steam. We're seeing some signs that the trend is starting to tire, but we are still bullish until I see a major break of structure or a sustained bearish move. I'm not really going to go into too much detail for the shorts just yet, but what I can see is that we are really struggling at highs here. So taking some shorts off here, again, slightly more aggressive trade because we are going against the tide. The market on the higher time frames is trending higher, But this is definitely a level which we are struggling to break through. Seeing some evidence over there, slightly over there, more so over here, and maybe as price develops, we can see some evidence of that happening again, and hence some shorts could be looking really good. Effectively, we have been ranging between this high and that low, excluding this kind of bearish move there. Price has been trapped in this area since March, so being very flat for pound CAD despite the bullish trend. We're back at resistance in a range. If price rejects as well, I think this is a really smart place for a short. I like how we are starting to slow down as well, because we were pretty aggressive on the way up, but it looks like we're becoming a bit more corrective, seeing more frequent bearish candles and smaller bullish candles as well. So it's a sign that we're slowing down and perhaps starting to find resistance here as well. So maybe we can consolidate, fluctuate a little bit more, see some more wicks and a strong close. I think that could end up being a very nice place for an entry. Stops above the high, and if things go very well, maybe even swing back to the low of the range. What I will say though is keep an eye on the 50%. Especially in a situation like this where we're going against the tide. Yes, the market is ranging and shorting at the high makes sense, but there's always a risk that we do break out and we do see higher highs and the trend does continue. So instead of looking for the home run in one go, potentially looking to bank some profits around the 50% is a safe bet, because if maybe the trend is going to continue, perhaps we see something like this, we might not see the full move. And that it could be a smart place to kind of reduce risk, and if we smash through that, you can always leave the remainder to run back to lows. So I would suggest keep an eye on the 50% area, which is around 1.85250. But yeah, I'm looking for a swing back into support around 0.83. But again, vital we see a bit more evidence of rejection before jumping in first. But that is the plan for pound CAD, just looking to short the high around 1.87 for next week. Okay, so next up we got pound yen. So we're still trading at a very significant level, which is this 200 area on the daily chart. I've been waiting for price to actually break through this, but we haven't really made much progress in that department. I mean, we were pretty bullish this week, hinted maybe at a breakout, but altogether we haven't really seen much momentum in terms of really kind of powerful candlesticks breaking higher, which is probably what's going to be required to really get a decent breakout of this level. Because if we do, there's some targets around 207 which I quite like the look of, which is our last kind of major swing high. Clear resistance there. That will be my next expectation there for pound yen. But at the moment we're really struggling at resistance and kind of starting to move a bit sideways, which is a sign that we're kind of coming into equilibrium, sellers, buyers kind of balancing each other out. And perhaps we're kind of just waiting for that catalyst to really get the ball rolling, where the price is going to break to the upside and we're going to continue high and get that breakout we'd be mentioning, or price is going to reject again, maybe clear support well, and that could be the start of perhaps another bearish move back into lows 195. Because after all, we don't have to break to the upside. We could reject again and perhaps even see a really big bearish move. Last time we were here, we did see a pretty big turnaround. That could be on the cards again. Of course, the yen's going to play a big role in that. But for now, we are quite sideways. So I wouldn't probably jump into anything here unless you're on the lower time frames. If you're looking for a bit more of a swing trade, kind of waiting for momentum to kind of dictate the next play. Is it going to be a break like this? In that case, we can start talking about some retests and some continuations, and there's a lot of room to the upside, so I quite like the look of that. But equally, if price does perhaps see a strong close below, or you're waiting for a retest, I do think there's some nice opportunities to go short there with a target back at support around 195.234, and then we'll work our way from there onwards. So pretty neutral, you could say, for pound yen, just basically waiting for more information, more development at this level, whether we are seeing the breakout or price is going to reject it and turn around. At the moment we are rejecting, so maybe I'm leaning a bit more towards the bearish side of things, but not do anything yet until I see kind of a clear signal for an entry, or clear signal to say, okay, bears are in control right now. So a break of the low, a break of the high is kind of what we're waiting for. Keep an eye on 200. Either which way, there's opportunities really. But again, just staying patient and waiting for the right time to strike. So that is the plan going to next week for pound yen. Okay, so next up we've got gold. So gold's still very much within this range and nothing has really changed, to be honest. So we're still looking at the exact same setup as we have been for the past few weeks, which is looking to short at the highs or buy at the lows. and really not looking to get involved in the middle. Again, in terms of a swing bias, that's really what I'm speaking from. I'm sure there's intraday opportunities within these fluctuations, but again, I'll keep it short and sweet, not looking for any sustained move. If you're looking to try and take a swing trade, a big part of swing trading is where you position yourself, where you're getting involved in the markets. If you're timing yourself in very poor areas, then you're not going to be really taking advantage of the move in the best way possible. And simply when you are in a range where market is fluctuating, trying to call the lows and trying to call the tops is the best way to do that, is the best way to position yourself, especially in terms of catching the bulk of the move. So if I'm looking to get involved in gold, I do need to see price push to these highs or to these lows. I do want to get involved in those areas, but it is pretty simple. That's the beauty of ranging markets. We're literally looking for price to approach support, resistance to sell, waiting for, of course, evidence and rejection at those areas before jumping in. And of course, if we do see breakouts, then the bias will switch. Instead of looking for buys at the lows, we'll be looking for break and retest opportunities, pullbacks to hopefully take advantage of that momentum. For breakouts to the downside, probably looking at pushing to the low there around 31.40, and breakouts to the upside, at least a push back to highs, but we could go a lot further. Of course, there's still gold, which is still very much in a higher time frame uptrend, and that could still very much be in full swing with a break of the high. So there could be a lot of upside potential there, but as of now, still within the range. Looking to short the highs, buy the lows, and that's simply where my opportunities do lie with gold. So until we get there, not much to report on, but keep an eye on both of those levels next week. Okay, so over to BTC. So it looked like we got a continuation this week, but it did fall flat in its face. This was kind of like a big bull flag we had. Lovely continuation. There was our correction, another continuation there. We pinched the highs, but we came down pretty aggressively, and that has kind of set a bit of a negative tone for BTC. The market, of course, is still overly bullish. You can see the overall trend is still very much up, but we are failing at highs pretty aggressively, which is something we haven't really done too much in the past. And when we have done, it has led to a bit more downside. So not necessarily favoring a complete collapse for BTC and maybe in a bearish cycle. It's too early to say that. We could be, but it's too early to justify that. But it possibly means that maybe a bit of a consolidation starts to form, or at least a deeper pullback for BTC in this bearish leg. So I'm more focused with shorts, pretty bullish last week, but now I quite like the shorts, especially if we can come back and retest some of these areas, particularly in this kind of head and shoulder setup, left head, right shoulder. I think that would be a very nice space for a short. This is, of course, where we're seeing all the rejection. So ideally, it would be nice to see if we can get another push into that area and possibly some shorts back into the prior low, or even like a low here. Let's say if we do pull back from there, of course, that would be a nice initial target for the trade, or even a final target, depends how big of a move you're looking for. But because of the rejection we're seeing at the highs, I do think we probably can make our way back into the low here around 112k. So yeah, Bitcoin not looking too good unless some momentum comes from somewhere and we break highs again. Well, then I'll change my tone, but right now things are not looking too great, especially if that momentum. So pullbacks and more downside is very much the play, around 121k for some entries, targets 117k, and then eventually 112. But that will be the plan next week for BTC. Okay, so last but not least, we've got Euro Aussie to wrap things up as our bonus pair. So with this one, I quite like what I'm seeing, especially on the daily chart. We've seen a nice close, and it looks to me that price is breaking out of this consolidation. Euro Aussie, Pound NZD, Euro NZD, all very, very similar pairs. They tend to do the same thing. And we just mentioned Pound NZD early in the video. That's looking like it's having a bit of a breakout there. We mentioned Pound Aussie as well, it's looking quite bullish. It looks like Euro Aussie seeing that same bullish momentum as well, and especially with this close on the daily chart. So simply I'm looking for a push back to the highs here. Possibly Euro Aussie could make a way all the way up there as well, but I'm not as convinced. We are still quite corrective in the way up, so I'm not going to get too carried away with this breakout. And after all, this is still a pretty meaningful level of resistance. So I do like the upside back to the high, and then we'll go from there. We'll see what price does. Maybe we show strong signs of rejection, or maybe we pick up momentum and see an aggressive breakout, and then we'll probably be talking about the highs over there next. But for now, we're seeing a pretty nice breakout of this range that's gone on for a couple of weeks at least now. So I would suggest, as long as Euro Aussie can stay above this area, there could be some nice longs to take back into the high there, and just looking for a swing trade for the week. I think that's a very sensible trade, especially if you can drop to maybe like an hourly chart to really refine the entry. Could be looking at a decent return on that position. So Euro Aussie, looking at the breakout, looking at entries on the retest to really refine risk. Again, what we don't want to see is price close back within the range. That will completely invalidate the opportunity. So watch out for that if you do start breaking back below. Not that we can't suddenly turn bullish again, but the opportunity in terms of the breakout and the continuation and the momentum is no longer the case anymore. So we do want prices to stay above 1.79, and of course next target we push back to highs, and then we'll go from there. But that's a nice swing to keep an eye out. And of course, looking at some other correlated pairs, we're seeing similar characteristics, which gives me a bit more confident that this move is the real deal and we'll likely see more upside. So keeping a close eye at 1.795 for Euro Aussie, with targets at 1.81, we can call it, for next week. And that, guys, does bring us to the end of the analysis. So if you have enjoyed today's video, guys, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future, share it with your friends, comment down below any pairs you're interested to trade next week. I'm interested to find out. If you do want to support the channel a bit further, you can support the channel via memberships. There's different perks, advantages for signing up as a member of the channel, so check it out if you're interested. But guys, have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all in the new week.